I probably won't have SummerQuest on, but y'all can ask me or let me know what songs you guys want to have on in the background.
Hey, honestly, that's up to you. Why is there a picture of Batista like that?
Wait, you sent that? What?
That one. I was looking through Batista pictures, and there's one that's suspect.
Don't post it.
Suspect.
Oh no, I've avoided it altogether. Like with all the shit that's been going on with FGC, with Mr. Wizard and fucking Smash. Hell no, I ain't trying to get flagged here, ladies and gentlemen.
The FBI already got you.
Hell no.
They saw Batista and they're like,
It's just Batista. It's like, oh, wait a minute. He's going to look at Batista? Hell no. Bust down his door.
Good grief. Also, I've posted on most things. Oh, wait. Yeah, okay, there we go. Oh, frick! Nope, never mind. I messed that up. Hold on a second. Fiddlesticks.
Wait, what?
I didn't put the actual stream link in the tweet. That's why. I was just tweeting about the podcast without putting the Twitch link. There we go. We're good now.
Okay, so why is there two different Shions? Like, there's one with a long ass braided ponytail, and then there's one with fucking pigtails.
That one's from Fate, and she's not technically real.
Fanon, not canon.
No, it's not technically a Eltnum or a Shion.
Yeah, I'm putting it in.
Yeah, so on the left, that's the design.
That one looks cool though.
That was it. At least I think it's inspired from the Fate one, or it's like concept art or whatever. But there was a Fate character added that looks exactly like Eltnum with twin tails, and I think they kind of make like a reference to it, very like tongue in cheek.
Fate Grand Order.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I could see the similarities. I guess. But the one from Fate doesn't turn into a vampire, so...
I mean, technically, neither does the one in Undernight.
You're not wrong. That's only because in Undernight there is no vampires, unless I'm wrong.
No. If there were, they would be in-births or voids.
Gotcha, okay. I don't know the whole backstory on...
Yeah, neither do I, and I am a serious player of this game. The story doesn't matter.
I still haven't played.
Oh, here we go. Ron went live without saying anything. And so I heard hiccups in the background.
You literally said we were going live.
I said I'm pushing the freaking live button. And y'all are supposed to be letting people know that I'm live.
Oh, well,
I'm gonna...
everybody, it's fucking high.
Right.
I'm gonna also go out on a limb and share this in the
Bro, you
Fighting
Gamers. I'm trying to leave at 8. I'm trying to leave at 8 and go get some food.
Well, we can go ahead and chat it up right now if you would like.
I'm just saying, if you want me to contribute to this discussion, you got about 30 minutes.
How long is it gonna take you to eat?
I don't know, but the thing is I got people over. I got a wife to make happy, so I got 30 minutes.
That's how it goes.
You're a better person than I am. I wouldn't be fucking here if I were you.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to. The problem is I try to do both.
You talk about having people over and have a wife to make happy. Like, you really should be on it all.
In that regard, I would have been like, "Hey, yo, I got people over. Yeah, you're gonna have to catch me another day."
My main character flaw is that I just try to do everything for everyone. So that's how I am here.
Well,
Oh, absolutely.
It's a very bad habit to have.
Sounds like
Okay,
who?
there we go. So much better picture.
Well, you're mucho appreciated. I can go ahead and attempt to start then. Howdy, whoever may end up coming in at some point. Welcome to, episode 9 of the FresGC podcast. That's wild. We've done 9 of these. That's sick. Various game discussion, usually leaning towards fighting games, because that's what the majority of us do. But focusing particularly today on fighting games, talking about a general topic that I find very important and something that I think about a lot, and it's what it actually means for fighting games to be balanced. And we're looking into the various aspects that contribute into fighting game balance, and I guess exploring various perspectives on them. And speaking of perspectives, we got the usual homies, Negus EOL and Coco Twinkie. I think you guys actually have gotten little snippets of their perspectives on balance. Would you say it's kind of transparent already, Donovan EOL, or not?
For me, absolutely. I feel like if anybody knows me, they know at this point how I like my games. If you are surprised, that is on you.
Oh man. And with EOL, I think maybe it's because our experience with him is either in tag team fighters or stuff like them's fighting herds. But now that I think about it, I need to see EOL in a game like Street Fighter or King of Fighters or something like that. I don't know.
I played Cammy and put myself to sleep.
Okay, so them's fighting herds is depending on which character you're playing. It's just anime King of Fighters. Like there's short hops. If he plays Paprika, it's essentially King of Fighters with items.
oh, there's assists in that.
No, there's not assists.
Just items like.
There is so.
Paprika gets to throw items. Gets to throw like stuff.
It's like Faust in Guilty Gear.
That's kind of.
Did you say it's kind of hype?
I like tuned out all like.
Oh yeah, what I get added about?
We're losing it. Wait, what do you want?
Nah, nothing. Go for it.
Oh, well, the guy occasionally cutting out is Matt, aka Mattlock, aka Good Twin, aka Evil Twin, aka Cammy RIP. He said so many freaking tags, but he seems like he's set on Mattlock for now.
It's got my name in it, so I don't have to. Oh.
It is helpful, at least.
Yeah, I don't have to say.
You're breaking up a lot. Like, is it just your sensitivity? Oh my.
Maybe.
Wait, like mic sensitivity or like connection?
Nah. I don't know if it's sensitivity or if it's connection to Discord.
It might just be the connection altogether.
That's fine. Hopefully, I'll figure it out on the way.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, I suppose. But last but not least, we got Gray Fox. It's been on some of the podcasts before, and usually memeing it up in chat in the shenanigans stuff.
Yeah, I'm here most of the time to give support, but then when FGC topics like today and some of the others beforehand, I like to not necessarily give my input, but like want to converse because there was stuff that I may know that someone else might not, and then there's stuff that I won't know that I'll learn from these. So
Yeah, I like how informative. Well, for me personally, these can be very informative. Um, so voila. I have shown everyone to talk. Oh yeah, and sorry. So Sneck, who's usually here, he's stuck in a Discord time loop apparently. And we'll see if he joins in like later on in the night. But usually, whatever characters Eve plays, he likes them to be very enabling characters. So hopefully later we'll get to see his perspectives on balance. Uh, But here's the general talking points we were going to have today. And in our other uh, group chats or whatever, we've actually kind of belabored on this topic a lot. So hopefully we'll be able to bring up some of the points that we've already discussed in the past and apply them to these talking points. And then we'll see what discussion goes from there, you know? Um, so for me, I figured setting a good foundation with this sort of discussion, it'd be best to go around and first see what it actually means for a game to be quote unquote balanced for each of the people here. Just so that we set the foundation for everyone's perspective on that, and then we can kind of pick things apart with the later questions, um, possibly point out contradictions and whatnot. But you all, you want to I guess go ahead and just say what you feel is a balanced game to you.
That's pretty simple. Everybody has a chance. I don't think there should be anything worse than a 65-35 game. I think everybody should have a relatively decent. Uh, some characters will clearly be better than others, but I feel like Skullgirl, for example, what I'm thinking of, everybody has. You just can't be out here picking teams. You get to go. You can literally play whoever you want, just not whoever you within. Like you can't pick three of whoever, but you can pick like one character that you really want to play, and then build a really good team around. You might be able to even pick two of them and build a team around them, depending on who the two are. But like stuff like that, as long as I just have a chance, give me a chance with every single character in the game, and that's all. That's all I.
So basically, freedom, character freedom for the most part, which I
Yeah.
guess comes in character design.
If I lose a character select, that's not a very good balance.
Don't y'all
Like
love playing those
like
games?
if I'm actually stupid for picking this character, then like that's not very good. Balance.
Okay, so that's actually a well. Of course, there's little things to unpack there that we will probably be discussing a lot later, but the freedom to pick who you want and you don't look silly trying to pick who you want to pick. That's a fair evaluation of a game's balance.
Yeah, like imagine trying to play Phoenix Wright and Mark. You're dumb.
But he's cool though.
that's not the point.
All right, but so if you're playing the game even slightly competitively, and you pick Phoenix Wright, you're like extra dumb because like that's the worst character in the game. Like, and if your goal is to win, especially if your goal is to win and you pick Phoenix Wright, you're lying to yourself. Your goal is not to win.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that character is super bad. Like that, I'd say that's a pretty prime example of a semi-modern game where like the balance is like god awful.
Marvel 2.
Semi-recent.
Well, and like I said, I guess that's where we could get into specifics of character aspects and why a character may seem just straight booty compared to the rest of the cast. Um, but I'm glad that you specified too. It comes down to if you're taking a game even semi competitively, like semi serious about being competitive in a game. Because obviously, if you're competitive in a game, you probably want to have fun, but you also probably don't aim to lose. That's probably a fair assumption.
Yeah, no one wants to lose.
I can't think of someone that would enter tourney just to lose. But yeah. So that's a good foundation there. What about you, Donovan?
Yeah, for me, a balanced game should be. It's kind of the same thing that Yoel said, and I feel like this is. Actually, no, this is definitely going to get a lot of different answers, so I'm not even going to finish that statement. But I think you should be able to play who you want without feeling like you are severely limited in that character. So every character should be able to do something really well. I don't care how dumb the game is. I don't care how broken it is. I don't care how balanced it is. Somebody should be able to perform their, piece exceptionally well.
Okay, and it's interesting that you say you don't care how broken a game is, because I guess that's another point that'll probably come up later. Is what's considered quote unquote okay in a fighting game, but you can't. I guess you technically can have a game that's balanced, but everyone is stupid. Uh, what is it that Zeke always likes to say? Just make a game where everyone is busted and then no one's busted, quote unquote.
I would love that. That would be great.
Gosh dang it. But yeah, that's a sentiment that at least the logic is sound there for me anyway. Matt, are you still with us? Oh frick, is he like gone? Hold on, let me check Discord.
No, he's in the Discord. I don't know if his stuff is working or not.
Rip. Until he chimes in, I guess go ahead, Quincy. And let me know what you think.
So I definitely agree with EOL and Donovan here in terms of like the whole balance aspects. Really just like you being able to pick a character, any character, and not having the matchup being so overwhelming to where you're forced off of character just because of the matchup and all that. So that's why I feel like having balance between all characters would be ideal, but of course none of the fighting games of current or late have that sort of balance.
That point I would feel is definitely debatable. Oh, and actually I forgot, that's actually a point that I brought up later too. That's going to be interesting when I have y'all name which games you think are the best example of this balance that we're establishing. But from what you described, it sounds like it's partially more about, or it seems like you honed in specifically on matchup spread. Am I right to assess that or no?
Yeah. So the way I see it is for a balanced game, of course, your typical ideal of a balanced game would be to pick the same character. Both players pick the same character, and then it all just comes down to
Skill.
how well you know the game and how well you know that character in order to win. That's what I would consider a balanced game. But as you know, almost every fighting game in existence has a variety of characters with a variety of moves. So it's impossible to say that that you have a full 100% balanced game, but there are games that come close to it.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure which games there are off the top of my head, but there are games out there that have come close to it.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's we're gonna have examples that can be debated on. And that kind of actually, I don't know if it's a stretch to say that this kind of surprised me that the foundation at least of everyone's view of a balanced game is similar. And I say foundation because, again, it seems like there's aspects that you could pick apart that some would agree can fit into this structure of a balanced game, and there's other things that, again, are just considered not okay. Um, and I guess that's why, for my definition, I would partially want to go a bit into those specifics. But I guess for now, I honestly probably have to agree with you guys that the foundation of a balanced game is pretty much at the character select screen, where uh, to me, your game is as close to great balance as possible if every character in that game is designed adequately to function with their own unique game plan. And like you guys have said, there's a reason to pick them. Like basically no character is rendered obsolete. Because there are some games where even if a character is good, people will quote unquote say it sucks because another character is just them but better. So the main thing I would tack on to what you guys have said is uh, each character is developed with an established purpose, uh, and they fulfill whatever niches that a player wants to have. So, huh? That's that's kind of shocking. This is gonna be an interesting conversation. Matt, you alive? No? Yeah? Actually, let me double check. Oh, no. I think it's gonna be disconnecting it out for now, but for now we can uh, at least touch on the second point because it does kind of tie into what we already said. Uh, would you guys say, at least on a competitive level, would you say character diversity shows or is a true testament of a game's balance? Like at not necessarily higher competitive level, but I guess you would say probably like mid and up because mid-level competitive play and onward is where you can probably make the assumption that players understand the game enough and they've found whatever character that like is their calling, is their niche. Would y'all agree with that or no?
So yes and no, because I think if a it's like squares and rectangles, right? Like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square.
Mm-hmm.
I think a well-balanced game will inherently show character diversity, right? Because people can pick who they want. But I think that just because a game's competitive character use is diverse does not necessarily mean it's good in terms of balance, right? Like Uni L and ST were not the best balanced games, but there was still a lot of character diversity, right? And towards the end of Marvel 3's lifespan, and even now, like we're starting to see a lot more people, with more like off meta air quotes teams. But that game is obviously imbalanced as fuck. Like anybody can attest to watching a zero team just completely dismantled, a Shenko team or whatever, because that game is just ultra not balanced.
Since Zero May Cry is definitely one.
Yeah, watch a Morrigan team completely dismantle a team of like Nemesis, Shenko, like Iron Fist. Like that's just not fucking happening.
Well,
it's just not gonna happen.
well, in fact, I'd want you all to chime in on that in a second, but that kind of immediately makes me think back to the foundation that we just established, where if you're seeing more character diversity and these characters are performing decently in competitive play, is the main thing that you're saying that there are top tiers that still technically invalidate the diversity, like the characters that you see in that diversity, or what? Like,
Yeah, like there comes a certain point where at high level players can take bad characters and do well with them, but that does not necessarily make the game balanced. It might be balanced enough, but it's kind of subjective. Like, I wouldn't say that Saikyo winning Evo with Enkidu makes Uni balanced. I think it's great on Saikyo, but I wouldn't say that Uni was very like highly balanced. It was balanced enough. I would have liked some, changes. Seth was clearly overtuned in the last version. So, but I mean, like I said, I think if a character set is diverse, then it helps illustrate at least the level of balance that a game has, because you could look at like fucking Tekken 7 right after Leroy came out. They did Evo Japan or whatever, and like there were like 5 Leroys in like top 8.
oh man, that was
That's
great.
absurd.
So it also speaks to like I guess a micro sense as opposed to like the entire game. It can show how well a single character is or is not balanced, because you have something like Leroy towards the end of Street Fighter's lifespan, Street Fighter 4's lifespan, everybody had like a pocket Elena that they would just switch to when they just didn't feel like, engaging. So a game itself can be balanced, but there can be a certain character that just like clearly sticks out among the rest of the cast. But yeah, I think they're to say that like a game is diverse but not balanced. Yes, like players can take characters and do well with them, but still, if you look at like the overall majority, that character is still going to get fucked by top tiers or whatever.
Okay. That is a point that I actually want to address too. But first, EOL, what do you think?
Kinda. I mean, a lot of people are.
Oh wait, Frick, you're cutting out. What?
Yeah, no, yeah. I fixed that. I was gonna say, like, kind of, sort of, like, in regards to, like, if a bunch of people are playing a bunch of characters, then maybe there's some type of balance to that point. But at the same time, it kind of ends up being the case that, like, sometimes a blind squirrel finds a nut, and sometimes a Phoenix Wright player might make top 16 or something like that. And like
Shout
be
out
super
Justice.
yeah, pretty much like that. I promise you, that guy being like
fuck you, Phoenix Wright.
like that guy. Yeah, no, he's really good, but him maybe making Phoenix Wright look good does not mean the character is good, and he's also the only one. It kind of just ends up like if okay, I think I got it. If you can look at a character, like if you could look at all the characters in the game and say, I could win a major with this character, like I'm going to win a major in my game with that character. And you could say that with every single character.
That's
No,
pretty
that's not
solid.
true. I mean, I feel like that. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. But at the same time, like, Enkidu just won Evo like last year, right? No, the year before?
Top 3, yeah.
Something like that. So I don't know. I'm gonna say kinda, because like ultimately you still gotta look at like the character's tools and whatnot and see, like, I mean, you might just have a really good character like win a tournament, like, but ultimately like if Sonic Fox takes like the bottom 3 character in MK and wins a major, character still sucks. You know what I mean? It's just Sonic's that much better than everybody else.
Yeah, in fact, that's why I'm glad.
Like, you just gotta take it. So the answer to 2 is like kinda, but you still gotta look at like how good the characters are, and then like just make that judgment for yourself.
So there's a certain threshold where your judgment starts to shift into questioning if it's the player and not the character.
Yeah, like if the player's just too dominant, then yeah, of course they can win with anybody.
Well, that's why, I mean, well, when it comes to character diversity, usually, I mean, seeing one player do really good with a character is one thing, but if you start to see like 2, 3, 5, or more, it starts to seem like less of a niche coincidence and more of a thing of, wow, this character may actually be better than we thought, which is the point that I wanted to touch on, where I guess I might have well, I mean, you probably heard Donovan point out that apparently my views are usually the more optimistic one, depending on the circumstances. But I guess that's where the point that I would want to look into is where if you start seeing multiple characters consistently doing well at a higher level, and it's not just one-off, one-trick people, wouldn't that be a point where you start to question maybe this character is better than we thought? And on top of that, I guess it's also a thing of just word semantics, where you'll say this character's bad, but they're not actually that bad. It probably depends on the person. But would you guys say that that could be a factor that would come in at some point, where if you start seeing character diversity enough, don't you need to question whether or not the character is as bad as people thought?
I think there's a difference between characters being underexplored and characters not being represented just because they're bad. Like, for example,
Yeah, definitely.
There's like, you could make this argument using Melee, for example, right? Whereas people would say that Yoshi is underexplored because he has a lot of really great, advanced tech, blah, 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 this and that. So Yoshi was moved higher because of these considerations, right? AMSA started doing some really cool shit with Yoshi at majors consistently. And everybody's like, you know what? Okay, Yoshi's got some tools. He's not that bad. That is an example. And a counter example to that is, I guess, like Waldstein, because Waldstein's not underexplored. He just kind of doesn't have a lot, right? Or you could look at characters like Dan or DJ in Street Fighter 4. Characters, I don't even know who it would be in Tekken, but yeah, it's just there's characters that are clearly underexplored, and that's a thing. And then there's characters that are just not represented because they're bad. And so, yeah, there are some,
So there's levels to it.
What's that?
There's levels to it, I suppose.
Yeah, there's some once in a while cases where, somebody will find some tech and other people will start exploring it. And they're like, okay, this character, gets bumped up, 1 or 2 spots in the tier list. But it's less frequently the case than just saying, yeah, this character is bad, and then they just stay bad for the majority of the game's lifespan, unless there are any changes. Like a really good example of this, I guess, and EOL might be able to corroborate this, is Frank West in Marvel 3, because everybody thought that Frank West was kind of meh, and then turns out he is the single greatest anti-Phoenix character in the game by completely invalidating her once she turns dark. So it doesn't get better than Frank West for killing Phoenix. And everybody's like, okay, cool. Like, maybe we can start rocking with Frank. And then they realize, oh, well, shopping cart's actually pretty good. Then they started building teams around Frank Point so that they could get him levels. And they're like, you know what? Okay, yeah, Frank isn't that bad. He's still bad. You still would rather have somebody else on your team. But, he kills Phoenix and he's not terrible.
So that gives him a purpose.
Yeah, he has one very specific purpose. Otherwise, he's not bad. You can definitely run Frank Point and not be upset. I like running Frank Point if I'm playing with people that don't know what they're doing, because he's a very straightforward character. Like Frank West, for as anti-Phoenix as he is, he's very honest. He doesn't have a whole lot of dumb Marvel shit. He'll just kind of hit you, and you'll be like, "Oh, I got hit." But yeah, he's just not great, I guess.
Yeah, he's okay. Like, he has an instant overhead, but like I think his only low is like 2H.
Yeah, it's kind of bad.
Well, that's where we get into word
he's just
semantics.
not a Marvel character.
Wait, what?
He's not okay. So there are and are not Marvel versus Capcom characters. Like you can say, oh yeah, that's a Marvel character. Zero is a Marvel character. Wolverine,
so.
Magneto, those are Marvel characters. Iron Fist is not a Marvel character. Are you following my logic here?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Oh, pour one out for you, boy.
Yeah, I love Iron Fist, by the way. Don't take this as Iron Fist slander because I absolutely love Iron Fist. I love playing Iron Fist. I love seeing Iron Fist.
Nah, he's mad
He is
cool.
just fucking terrible.
And I guess that's where we semi-dip into word semantics, where if a character has a purpose and starts to function, can you really call them bad? And do they just
Absolutely.
go...
I'm gonna jump in right here. You can absolutely call them bad just because they do one thing really well. If they still are outperformed in every other aspect by the cast, and the other cast this goes into the peaks and valleys that we were talking about in Facebook, right? If this character has, say we're talking about Tekken, right?
Mhm.
And this character has the fastest low launcher in the game, and that's all they have, that does not make that character good. That character is still bad.
Yeah, I would
everything else
basically...
is like punishable. Like their fastest mid is like 20 frames. Like, yeah, this character is still bad. They can do one thing really well, like Frank West, and still be bad.
Well, for me, what would take them out of the bad into functional or viable or whatever you want to call it would be is if the rest of their tools support that like noticeable strength. If they don't have any other tools that actually help them apply that strength, then it's an impractical strength, and then yeah, of course they're bad. But see, this is I guess where we would get into examples of characters that you would say have a good strength, but they aren't enabled to use that strength. Like, is there an example of that where you would say someone seems like they have something that's good, but they're still considered bad because it's impractical?
I mean, I guess Yoshi, because people are talking about how Yoshi can like perfect parry everything in Melee, right? But he just
That
it's
doesn't
not
happen.
viable. It's not practical. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. And then there's this is the perfect thing that you brought up, because there are other characters who will supposedly have this, godlike tech, but it's impractical. But they have other things that are just way better than other people, and so they're top tier anyway. Fox supposedly will never get hit because he has a move that is invincible on the first frame, and blah blah blah. Nobody ever perfectly shines every hit, and yet Fox is still broken. So, or maybe not broken. Fox is still top tier.
Yeah.
So if it can happen for top tiers because every other thing that they have is really, really good, it can happen for bad tiers because everything else that they have is really, really meh.
Okay.
That's putting it like super lightly too. Because in the case of Melee, so you have Yoshi, and I'm looking at the PGR right now, and
Want me to bring it up?
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead and link me.
Here, I'll link you. And so I'm looking at the PGR right now, and in terms of like viability and what a character can do out of different options, and I think Mewtwo King said this the best, that just because a character has the ability to beat one character with one or two moves doesn't mean that character is good. A while ago, if I remember correctly, on an online tournament, Zane, one of the best Marth players in the world, beat 2 or 3 top 25 foxes with Roy.
Yeah. So many people made YouTube videos about that.
And there was a lot of talk saying that Roy is now not necessarily top tier, but he's moved up from like the bottom tier to mid tier. And he was discussing it, and he was saying like just because Roy is capable of beating Fox with that much precision doesn't make Roy.
Well, it's still a severely disadvantageous matchup, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, like, according to MUGEN, I'm pretty. This is probably going to be the last time I'm going to quote him, but according to MUGEN, he said that in order for Roy to win at that high level of play, he would have had to won neutral 9 out of the 10 times, and that's just like without like any offstage gimping, because he has no offstage gimp. Everything that he has in the air is completely so underwhelming. It's incredible that he's even a character at all. But like I said, like just because you have the tools to do it doesn't necessarily make it to where you're a good character and will move up the tier list. Perfect example would be Yoshi. Like, Amsa is probably the only Yoshi that you'll know as far as when it comes to top tier level Yoshis, and like even mid tier level Yoshis, there aren't that many, because he himself as a character is limited compared to, say, Fox, Falco, Morph, Sheik, Captain Falcon. Like, those top tier characters have movement options, they have out of shield options, they have neutral options, they have so many options that can they have so many options that they can utilize, and not only that, but also punish almost every other option that you have. So like characters like
basically invalidating tools.
Exactly. So like you have characters like Yoshi, who has to like consistently perform at a top level play in order to be considered good. You have characters like Pikachu, who need to be at that top level play in order to be good. And that's why in the tier, or not in the tier list, but that's why in the PGR rating, you only see just one Yoshi. You only see just one Pikachu.
Yeah, those are examples where you could get into like one trick.
Even with Jigglypuff, who's slowly considered to be the best character in the game. Okay, so Hungrybox, number one Smash player in the entire world, mains Jigglypuff. The next Jigglypuff main does not show up until number 35. So you have a 32 person spread between the Foxes, Marths, Sheiks, Peach, Captain Falcon, Falco. Like,
it's so wild. People try to say Jiggs is number 1 in Melee.
And so, but to get back on topic on as far as character diversity. So like, you can have a diverse cast of characters, but it really depends on how many characters can not only beat out the rest of the cast, but it also depends on what type of neutral game you are running.
Oh, but yeah.
Hey, is my shit working now? Can y'all hear me?
Howdy. Yeah.
I had to fucking reset my computer and my fucking drivers because my mic just like randomly decided not to support itself anymore. Like this device is unsupported by Windows 10.
Wow.
I had to do a set. So
Gosh dang it. Well, now that you're here and at least functioning for the time being, in fact, hopefully if it's fine with you guys, we could well, actually, first off, have you heard most of what we said or no?
not really.
Frick. Well, we could dial back a little bit before we get to the second part of the second point. What do you feel defines a balanced game? And we can move from there.
Any game that has there's like two different thoughts running through my head. Like any game that I have fun in personally, that I can like disregard the bullshit in and like deal with all the crazy shit and still have fun with. But there's also the other end of like being like, oh, I want everyone else to be able to have fun and be able to do whatever the fuck they want to, you know? So it's like the in-between of that, I guess.
Yeah. So the freedom to do shenanigans and also deal with other people's shenanigans?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Dang, all y'all just want these games with just characters doing silly shenanigans. Gosh dang it.
What's wrong with that? I want to have fun.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Ronald literally just wants to play that mobile game, Footsies. That's all he wants to play.
Footsies?
Oh, yeah.
I think Sam's show might be a little bit too much for him, but he had to settle because ain't nobody was gonna play Footsies with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You could play Footsies, or you want to get really old, you could play a Karate Champ. It's completely balanced.
Ronald would absolutely. So this is something that I think like Ronald has this unachievable like ideal of a fighting game where most situations just give you a reward and spit you back into neutral. And I know this is Chase had this exact same idea. Chase just wants to do like maybe max like 3 hits and just go back to neutral and like have multiple player like, and it's just they want a majority of the game to not be about combos or pressure or momentum. They just want both players to be actively making decisions at all times.
I guess that explains why we like Sam's show so much.
Which will let me go ahead and say that Ronald's ideal game is Killer Instinct.
I still have to give Killer Instinct a thorough try, but I don't. Well, actually, when I get my new laptop, I probably will get Killer Instinct. I just don't have a freaking Xbox right now.
Oh, wait a minute, I forgot. Before I was in here, you know our good friend Sean Graham, Ronald?
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, he told me to tell you that you're a bitch ass for winning balanced games.
Wait, what? What the
Yeah.
frick? Wow, freaking rude.
So
I agree. I think if you exclusively want a game where nobody's feelings get hurt, that's not fun.
Okay, it's not about feelings not getting hurt. It's about it's about a whole list of things that I want to get into later.
Ronald out here pissed off that they actually added characters to Dive Kick.
Wait, did they add more characters to Dive Kick?
Wait, like recently?
Dive and Kick.
Oh. I mean, okay, so this is
Dive
actually super funny because even with just Dive and Kick, Dive is better.
Well, no, before they were the exact same character. And they added more characters, and then they wanted to differentiate Dive and Kick.
Because I played a lot of Dive Kick. I really love that game, and I can without a doubt tell you if that game was just Dive and Kick in their current iterations, Dive is better. Like even in a 2-player game, the tier list is A and B, and that's it.
Dive
There does seem to be some dumb stuff.
Dive is A, Kick is B.
That's great.
Ay.
Yeah, Dive is way better than Kick. I main Dive, so if anybody is trying to get some work.
The whole time I'm sitting here thinking that you guys are talking about like the move Dive Kick, and like how many characters there are, because the only reason I'm thinking about that is because of freaking Dr. Doom from Marvel 3. And that he does his foot dive, which has got like 2 variations of it.
Foot dive. I love that.
Yeah, I know all about foot dive. But All
You
right,
should
so
play
I
that.
have to. I'm gonna head out and I'm gonna go get food. I'm just gonna drop real quick the most balanced fighting game. Oh god, I just want to drop this and then leave because I'm sure it'll upset people.
Bro.
Most balanced, most balanced, most balanced.
Oh no.
That's like the easiest answer on planet Earth, but I'm gonna let you.
The
I'm gonna
easiest
save
answer.
mine. I'm gonna leave that till the end, but go for it.
I don't even know because there's a lot of pretty well balanced games that I've played. I don't know because I play a lot of bullshit.
Well, they could be dumb but balanced. Like, there's a
Israel,
difference-
did you
there's a
just-
difference
Israel, did you
between
just
like
say-
fair and balanced?
Israel.
Fair is what Ronald wants, and that's boring. But
Yeah.
a game could be dumb and balanced.
I'll
The
say
fact dumb and balanced is optimal.
the most balanced fighting game is Melty Blood without Siroa and Fhime.
Ooh.
Nah, okay.
You can't just
Okay.
cut characters out and say that's the most
Just take
balanced
out
game.
2 characters. Then it's balanced.
I mean,
okay.
that is a tiny
we're
ratio,
taking-
though.
If we're considering not Siroa and Fhime, then I guess it would be like I don't know, Koihime maybe. It's hard. Most games aren't very well balanced.
That'd be like me saying MVC2 is super balanced when you like don't add the top tier. When you
take
don't
out
add
the
the mid
gods.
tiers. Yeah, when mid tiers and below are out, MVC2 is super balanced. I'm gonna look at you funny.
All right, hold on. I need to.
Even if you say that, like, it's still unbalanced.
Nah, once you take out the mid tiers, it's fine. Because
I
you're
was just
literally
looking
taking out
for-
the unplayable character.
I'm gonna look at the Mizumi wiki. 'Cause
Dang,
those are all the
imagine a
games that I
game
play.
where mid tier is unplayable.
That just proves what I wanted to bring up later on is like the most balanced fighting game is whatever you want it to be personally. You know, everybody's got different opinions, basically.
well, this is where perspective comes in of what you consider okay in a fighting game or not. But that's where, when we were laying down the foundation in the beginning of, where you can have a balanced game and technically stupid stuff, versus apparently it's such a crime to have a balanced game and just hardly any stupid stuff.
There's
Both
still
of
going
those
to be
things are
stupid stuff.
possible. You can
Yeah,
make a
there's gonna
game
be
without
stupid-
dumb stuff, but it's still a fun game.
Yeah, but if you have more dumb stuff, it'll attract more degenerates that want to play it. I think.
Well, what if we're making a game without the intention of attracting degenerates?
Well, then you're not going to get fighting game players because all fighting game players are degenerates.
Well, frick. This is why I need to wait for the League of Legends fighting game instead.
See, this also ties back into one of the other podcasts where, you know, my fighting style is going to be up in your face. EOL's fighting style is his own. Donovan's is his own, and your fighting style is I'm just going to keep away.
Yeah, the
Damn,
funny thing is, I'm surrounded by a bunch of rushdown junkies.
Yeah, Ronald's from the East Coast, but he lives in Fresno, basically. he learned from, like, all the lame-ass East Coast players, and then he's suddenly just in Central California just because.
Dang, if it
See,
wasn't
the
so
problem
freaking
is he
cold, I
forgot
should be
to-
in these codes.
When he went to fighting game school, he forgot to take the class on offense.
Yeah. He's like, I just hold back, right? And then I backdash, and then I walk, and I backdash, and I walk, and I jump back. That's all I do, right?
I'll forget that aesthetic-wise, I've always played rushdown characters one way or another, but that's why I usually have a duality in my mains. And then over time, I just realized that I prefer just playing defensive and not even having to worry about attempting pressure, getting mashed out on, and then I get put in a blender I didn't want for breakfast. Like, what the
I
frick?
got it. Most balanced game, KI 2013.
Oh, word?
There's so much character diversity in that game. Unironically, you will see so many people playing so many different characters, and they all look really good.
If I
That
watched
game-
him more, I'd probably agree with you.
Go watch the KI doc if you haven't already. Shoutouts to Hold Back to Blog. I love watching KI. I should probably play it more, but that game is great. It has a lot of character diversity. KI Cup is coming back. it's probably the most balanced I can think of. This close second is maybe like Eunice. I don't know.
I was
It's
gonna
hard,
say,
man.
are you really gonna like undermine Uni's balance?
It's hard because as much as I love Uni, and Uni is pretty balanced, I don't think it's the most balanced game out there.
Yeah, probably not most, but it's definitely up there. But
if we're
according
doing like a top 5 most balanced games, Uni is definitely like in the top 3.
According to Israel, though, Street Fighter V is one of the most balanced because anyone can end you off of a random sweep.
Because Street Fighter 5 sucks. That's why that game sucks.
That's a crock of shit, and he knows it.
Street Fighter 5 is bad.
All right, wait. I gotta hear EOL. EOL, what do you think is the most balanced game? And then I'm
supposed to save this till the end. All right, it's Skullgirls.
I was gonna say Skullgirls, but the issue. So I would say Skullgirls. I was thinking about saying Skullgirls before KI, because Skullgirls is perfectly balanced as long as you build a team that makes sense. So you can't just put 3 random characters on a team, but if you have a team that makes sense, you can do well.
So it's balanced with certain steps.
Yeah, you can't just pick 3 random characters. You have to pick characters with synergy, but I think any team with synergy can do well in Skullgirls.
And that's how a team fighter works. You're never going to be able to just put random characters into a team with like no synergy and expect
as much as I hate that, that's true.
So yeah, I would easily say Skullgirls with the caveat that you have to build a team with synergy, and then you could, because people will like Squiggly is really bad in the game, but Squigglies are out here destroying people with the right shell, or she is part of a shell that makes a team work, and you're just like, damn, okay, like I guess Squiggly's not that bad, but it's like no, she's still bad.
Is super dumb. She has 2 really strong lockdown assists, and one of them is a freaking low, and then she's really good with meter.
Then how is she bad?
It's perfect. Huh?
Then how is she bad?
Mobility is not very great.
Yeah,
her approach without meter can be pretty obvious. And if she doesn't have a charge, my God, have mercy on your soul. You have no decent reversal.
Doesn't that mean she just has an established weakness but isn't bad? It just sounds like she has a really established weakness.
Yeah, but if your weakness is something that prevents you from playing the game the same way other characters, like most other characters, are allowed to, you're bad.
Isn't that how archetypes work?
No, because there are certain
she gets to do something special that not a lot of other characters get to do. With me, she gets to skip neutral, like completely skip neutral.
I was gonna say she literally can move the screen.
Yeah, but that's exactly the thing, is you need meter to do that, right? She doesn't have access to it all the time. If she could literally just freeze the screen whenever, yeah, she'd be like, top 3 or whatever. But it's specifically because like she struggles in a way that most of the cast doesn't, and her ability to, get a charge and have a reversal, or, do the sing into the note, it helps, but it's not going to rewrite her entire way of playing the game.
Wait, so having a good shell doesn't enable her as well? Because you guys made it sound like having the right shell enables her a lot. Oh.
Well, the thing is that she's part of a shell, so you wouldn't. Not many people run Squiggly Point, and shout out to those that do, because I really like Squiggly. But typically, she's like an assist, and you have somebody else running Point. And then you would eventually tag into Squiggly or DHC into Squiggly, because now once you take the necessary steps of like winning the neutral, you did your combo, you snapped them out, or you did a DHC, and you do, she freezes the screen and does the note, and then she gets her charge. Now she's ready to play the game, right?
So she has a very niche utility, so she's not actually amazing.
Yeah, she needs work to get good. It's like, for example, imagine if like Nikali was really bad outside of V-Trigger, right? And like outside of V-Trigger, he's a decent character as it is. But then when he goes into V-Trigger, you're like, okay, now I can play the game. It's not that you get better. You're like, okay, now I can start doing the same things that other characters can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. With that, I am going to go get food. I might see you all later.
Okay, yeah, poke in at any time, especially since apparently I think Israel said in the chat that ST is balanced.
ST is balanced in the
As long
sense
as you
that
don't play it.
everybody is dumb as fuck. You can
Yeah.
play essentially whoever you want in that game, as long as you're playing the right version of that character. Because everybody has something that will make you go, "That's bullshit."
Yeah.
Oh my god.
DJ has kill combos off of one jump in. Claw has unseeable 50-50s. Zangief, you can't jump out of his SPD, so if he jumps in on you and makes you block, you're dead. Bison has cross up, and Bison has everything. His pressure is inescapable. Ken's DP is almost unpunishable. Ryu has the best fireball game in the history of fighting games.
Yep.
Sagat, no, that's a lie. Sagat has the best fireball game in the history of fighting games. And the best DP. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Who am I
I'd
forgetting?
say the best fireball game goes to Marvel 3 Morgan.
No, I think Sagat would beat the shit out of Morgan in a fireball war.
Yo, when you play
Morgan's
Mugen.
second. Morgan is definitely second, but I think Sagat's got it. Who am I missing? Fei Long. Fei Long has throw loops. Blanca has his fucking sweep is actually kind of good, but Blanca doesn't have a whole lot of BS. Certain characters can't punish Cammy's DP. Chun has a cross up that sometimes hits low depending on how light you hit it.
That sounds dumb.
Sounds amazing.
Honda can store his command grab, so he'll do like it's exactly like Geef's as well, is where you can't jump out. So Honda will literally just like do his command grab, and if you're in the corner, he can just do it over and over again by doing like meaty jab. And the jab is so fast that if you DP, it'll just whiff, and then he'll punish you. Who am I
Y'all
missing?
play these games.
I think that's all the characters, and they're like dumb shit.
Because they're fun, Ronald. Why do we play games in general?
Oh, no, I said Chun-Li. Yeah, I think that's it. That's it. Everybody's got something dumb in ST. So I guess in that sense ST is balanced, but even other characters' dumb shit is way better than other characters' dumb shit.
Dang.
Like you cannot compare Claw and like Blanca. Like it's the amount of dumb shit. Oh, Dhalsim. I forgot about Dhalsim. Dhalsim's drills are absolutely stupid. Dhalsim is theoretically the highest tier ST character that isn't soft band. So soft band characters are Claw and Osagat, and Dhalsim's right under them as like the best.
Jesus.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, you're an asshole because you picked the top two, but like right under that is Dhalsim. So it's like, all right, if you pick Dhalsim, like we're gonna have a problem, but you're not an asshole.
Oh my god.
I got claw bullshit out of here.
I play Claw. I also play Osagat. So if anybody wants to play ST, you know where to find me. Oh, Boxer. I forgot about Boxer. Fucking Boxer has throw loops. Most of ST is just, can I throw loop you or not? That's essentially what it is.
Oh, you're gonna get freaking Israel to play ST Claw with you. Ah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Frick.
Once local start up, if anybody wants to see me in ST, I know how to play Claw, Osagat, Nuryu, and Boxer. So see me.
Dang. First local's gonna be freaking hilarious.
It's gonna be great.
Gonna be something. Well, thank you, Donovan. And yeah, later on, just pop back in at any time. We'll probably still be here.
All right.
Laters.
Peace.
And I guess we kind of skipped over it, but we did bring up points that apply to this question. Is do you guys feel? Well, because we already established how you think character diversity ties into balance. But do you feel, regardless of that, does lack of character diversity kill a game's appeal for you personally?
Kinda, sorta. I mean,
Kinda,
so like with what we were talking about with the whole diversity and character balance, having less characters could possibly be bad for the game, and it has nothing to do with the game's balancing or with how dumb or stupid the character is, but it has a lot to do with how the spectators view it. Because you also want to, because the developers themselves, they also want to target character or people who aren't into that super high competitive scene, who just want to play the game casually. Their best chance is to try to toss in as many different type of characters into a game to look appealing. Because let's be honest here, you're not going to try to play a fighting game where there's only 3 playable characters.
Probably not.
Even if the 3 playable characters are in a rock paper scissors format, you're not going to want to play. You're not going to want to play a game with only 3 playable characters over a game with, like, say 10 or 15 different characters, because it just appeals to you as a player to try to find a character that's most suited for you.
I guess that comes down to the aesthetic appeal of the game itself, because EOL, Them's Fight Nerds has, is it 6 or 8 characters?
6.
Dang, yeah, it's got 6 characters, and that's a game that still is getting more and more interest. And, well, like, you can go into the specifics of balance and design and whether or not each character is interesting enough to stand out. But I feel like the notion of character roster numbers selling a game, I can't think of a game where that actually works unless it's a sequel. Because usually the only time where a roster number will sell a game is if it's a sequel to a previous game where there were less characters. Like, am I wrong in that, or what?
Typically. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong in that. I would say the perfect example would be Marvel 1 to Marvel 2, where you had,
how many characters were Marvel 1 again? I don't remember.
15, 18 characters in Marvel 1, about 21 to 22 if you're adding, like, all the secret hidden characters. But then you jump up to, like, 52, 53 characters in the sequel. Now, granted, like, not every single one of those characters are good or viable. Hell, I've only seen like maybe 10 or 12 viable characters.
Freaking Servbot. Actually, yeah. Honestly, every time I play Marvel 2, I legitimately forget who's in the game because of just seeing the usual top tiers all the time. But then again, actually, maybe tag team fighters innately deal with that issue easier. Or, EOL, do you feel like, because tag team fighters usually inherently have big rosters, minus Skullgirls, do you feel like tag team fighters usually don't have the issue of character diversity killing a game's appeal, or no? What do you think?
A lot of those games are crossovers where, like, there's so many of people's favorite fighters that, like, even if they're garbage, they're just gonna play them to play them.
So the appeal's there regardless?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an example of a game then where there's plenty of character diversity, but the game has no appeal. Is there anything that comes to mind or nah?
That's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I mean, go ahead. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Mugen.
I mean, Mugen has some appeal though, doesn't it?
No.
Y'all don't watch Salty Bad?
No.
I watch Salty Bet almost all
Do you
the time.
play Mugen? I don't care about Salty Bet. Do you play Mugen?
Yes.
Not nearly as
When
much
was
as I
the last
used
time
to.
you played Mugen?
Oh, dude. No, you can't. That's not fair.
Alright, so you don't play. Gotcha.
I mean, well, actually, for me personally, honestly, Mugen is something that I've probably played more than half of the fighting games that people like. Like, I played so much Mugen when I first learned about it.
Is that what happened? You got killed one too many times by some stupid Mugen character, and you decided fair games only from now on?
You know what? I wonder if that, I wonder if
You
that
got
contributed
bodied
to
by
my
Omega
perspective.
Tom
at all.
Cruise or something like that?
Yeah.
Or
Once
like
you-
Shinakuma or some equivalent?
You get blown up by Nightmare Broly.
Dude, you play Mugen enough, you see plenty of things that should not exist in fighting games.
Killer Well.
Yeah, that's not a fighting game. It's just a pile of trash.
It's a literal engine. Oh, Mugen is great.
Yes.
I'm telling you, I would run Mugen locals if we could just get a stable build. And I don't know how much it would cost.
If
to get
you
the-
run Mugen, I'm not showing up to locals. I don't care what else is there.
But it'd be hilarious.
Alright, put it for your shenanigans series. Because I don't show up to those anyways.
You just gotta buy the stable build from Salty Bet. That's all you gotta do.
I'd have to see how much that would cost.
Buy
See?
Mugen.
Buy a free game.
I don't know what it is with Salty Bet. Fucking builder.
You purchase your oxygen?
I mean, people already are with fucking respirators in the hospital with corona and shit. You know?
Gosh dang it. See, y'all want me to play games with all this busted stuff, but then when I bring up Mugen, Ewo's like, nah, get out of here.
I think it's too busted then, probably.
Well,
I
because
don't know.
Mugen's literally dysfunctional in some cases.
It's
Some
for
characters crash
laughs.
the game.
I want to laugh at it.
All I'm
That's
saying
what
is,
it's
I remember seeing a video of, I forget which version of Akuma, doing some type of super that costed a bar and built 3 meters off of the super.
A self-fueling super. So stupid.
Super builds meter. That's fucking great.
Oh
See,
my
that's
god.
that kind of shit right there. That's for Salty Bet. Like, that's not something that you want to take to an actual tournament, because, like, I can guarantee you, like, if you were to try to run a Mugen tournament, like, you'd have more characters banned than you have.
Oh no, the
playable.
ban list would be astronomical. That's why, like Ewo said, this would be purely a shenanigans day.
You can literally make your own roster for Mugen.
Yeah. I make my own Mugen build for locals.
You're gonna put yourself in Mugen, right?
You can.
I mean,
Yeah.
it would honestly help with game design, yeah, but I haven't fully dove into looking at the Mugen engine yet.
Oh, that's gonna be the next project. Find someone who's a good programmer and an artist, and insert Vaughn into Mugen.
Bro, don't put me in Mugen.
I mean, Ronald's an art. You're an artist. All you gotta do is learn how to code.
I do have to look at the engine. And actually, don't put me in Mugen, because then I'm gonna like make my character heal by blocking, and then y'all are never gonna want to play Mugen again.
No, because then there's throws, and then there's overheads. There's so many other ways. Unless you're going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to block and then have a shield protecting me 100%.
Don't give this man ideas.
This is what's gonna happen. The first backdash does 50%. The second backdash does 40%. Combos into the first backdash and puts you in a freezing state where you just stay there for the rest of the round so that Ronald can time you out.
You get stuck in.
By the way, they're fully invincible just in case you decide to like stick a button and try to stop the backdash. Nah, it's fully invincible and it's unblockable.
Dude, that's Salty Bet X tier type shit right there.
Yo,
Don't give this man ideas for his future fighting game. He'll just make his character top tier.
I'm gonna come
Just
that and
because.
clip that later. I'm gonna make that a character.
You see, there you go. Ron
You're
again.
gonna name that character Ronald squared.
I'm making a
Ronald
Twitter
Square.
Because you block both sides in all angles.
I'm making a burner account on Twitter. And I'm gonna call it Ronald's fighting game is shit.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is great. See, clearly Mugen is the best, like most balanced fighting game. Obviously, like half of the characters in existence are banned. Wait, bro, how? Okay, before we get to the next topic, how the frick is Street Fighter 1 balanced?
Because
everyone has
Ken and Ryu.
You know, they play Ken and Ryu, and they're literally the same exact character.
And
It's pretty much dive kick before they started adding characters and differentiated dive and kick.
Yeah, man.
I mean, yeah.
It's basically a better looking karate champ.
Yeah.
Dang. Oh.
There you go, your balanced game. That sounds like
Street Fighter 1, the most balanced fighting game in history.
But Street
Yeah.
Fighter 1 is literally dysfunctional.
Yeah, but it's dysfunctional for everyone, so it's there for the most functional. you know?
honestly, I think I'd rather do 4 hours of work. Like I'd rather go to work and do half my shift unpaid than play fucking Street Fighter 1.
Street Fighter 1.
Like, is a game balanced if both players literally can't input things properly?
Yes.
If they both can't do
If they both can't do the exact same thing, then yes, it's
But you'd have
balanced.
to prove in the code that it's like it's an
That's not
oxymoron.
the question that should be asked. Now the question starts being like, all right, cool, it's perfectly balanced. Is it good? Is it worth playing? No? All right, cool, shut the hell up.
That's why balance is overrated, Ronald.
No,
cares?
balance is not overrated, but fairness is overrated. There's a
Yeah.
difference between being fair and being balanced.
Well, this is
You
gonna
can be
be
balanced and you can be balanced and fair, and that's boring. Or you could be balanced and like significantly less fair. Although
Well-
I feel like Mugen is like a great example of don't get too unfair, and then you'll be good to go.
But that's where that's the main topic I want to get to later on, is where personally I would still say you can have there's a wonderful golden rectangle sweet spot, JoJo reference, of having something balanced and not having any dumb stuff, to where the game is still fun. And God forbid you maybe use your brain a little bit while you're playing. Who knows? But that's a thought experiment that we'll get to later also. But it's become very apparent that majority of the people that play fighting games just like doing cool / dumb stuff.
Well, look, I'm gonna put you in a little secret. If I'm thinking, I'm probably losing.
Wait, what?
If I'm thinking in a fighting game, I'm probably losing.
But why?
I just play off a feel.
Oh my god.
I play way too fast to think. What the hell? If I'm thinking, I'm playing way too slow. If I'm playing that slow, I'm freaking dead.
But that's where your thought processes have just become better and better and that much faster. And you incorporate, things become second nature, and they go into your muscle memory, and then you're not having to think as much, and then it's literally developing a muscle, like in sports.
Yeah, I'm not thinking. I'm just like going through the motion. I'm just like kind of like, yo, it's just the motions. Like I see this, I want to do this, I'm about to do this, and like I said, I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm moving way too fast. Like if you're thinking in Skullgirls, you're probably dead. Like your game is way too fast.
You're not allowed to think in Skullgirls?
If you're thinking about whether they're gonna go high or low, they already hit you with the triple overhead. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh my
If
god.
you're thinking about trying to up back Sarabella, she already hit you with the instant overhead.
That game is really fast. Wait, every game boils down to got him or get got?
That's facts.
Yeah.
Oh my god, but there's so many aspects of fighting games that even lead you to get to the got him.
But it's the thing of getting them that is the most fun, right? You got them and you won. That's the best part, right?
Well, yes, but that's where for me personally, the reward comes from. I got him, but I had to like unlock the safe to get to the got him button. That's what gets
man,
satisfaction for me.
That's too much work. I just
That
want
is
to
a
win.
lot of work.
Yeah.
It just makes it all the more satisfying.
No, like, do you want money for like free, or do you want to work for it all your life?
Okay,
What do you want?
hold on. That's I don't know if that's a good comparison for this.
It is.
Perfect
It is.
comparison.
It's a perfect comparison.
Okay, so in the retrospect of Ron versus everybody else in this chat,
Freaking rude.
everybody else in this chat is basically getting money for free because we're putting more towards action, more towards offense, and rushing them down and being able to pick up not even pick apart, but just like in their face, making them think. Because like EOL said, if you're thinking, you're probably losing.
It depends on the game.
But if you're
Very much depends on the game.
But for you want to be able to sit back and think about your next action and be able to go to it in accordance with whatever whatever is coming up next. But like I said, like by the time you've gone through all that thinking, by the time you've gone through all that execution, you might have missed your opportunity. And so,
unless you build up your cognitive prowess to where things are second nature. Gosh dang it. And that's where you go into like specifics of what's what you personally find rewarding, who works on what when they play fighting games, what goes through people's minds and whatever. That could be a whole other conversation in itself, I suppose. But actually, that kind of segues into the fourth talking point, because when it comes to certain mechanics in games, there are some players that feel like certain mechanics take away that effort to reward dynamic. And that's where I know EOL, and well, Donovan's gone now, but EOL saw our conversation in one of the chats before. And I'd probably have to honestly look at it again to see what the bulk of that conversation led to. But one thing I wanted to ask y'all about was, do you guys feel that, at least in modern games, because it's kind of the trend nowadays, do you feel like some modern games make things a little too easy and too samey?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. There's more to unpack there, but I just want to start with that.
Every modern fighting game has at least one comeback mechanic. It depends on like how busted it is, though. Like,
wait, so for you, it's comeback mechanics that make things feel samey or too easy?
both.
Is that to say that all comeback mechanics make things easy?
Not all of them, but it's just that I don't know how to put it into words. Like, yeah, I'm still thinking on that. Give me a minute.
No worries. I guess also while I was thinking to semi-backtrack, I honestly for now might have to say, technically, I might have to agree with you, EOL, that Skullgirls maybe probably the most balanced fighting game I can think of. Because one way or another, at adequate competitive level, every character is played, aren't they?
Pretty much.
I can't think of a character that is not played at all in Skullgirls.
No, everyone's played.
Yeah, so I'm probably also gonna have to say Skullgirls. Wait, comeback mechanics are interesting when they work for the character. Well,
I can agree with that.
in what way? Because aren't most comeback mechanics usually universal mechanics? Like freaking, I don't know, freaking X Factor,
V trigger is the one I think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like, okay, cool. Everybody has a V trigger. They all work completely different. Well, not completely different. That's not true. But they work pretty differently.
Yeah, everyone's a little
Well,
different.
they definitely work differently, but would you say they all serve the same purpose? Of
They're meant to serve the same purpose, but a lot of them don't because they're just terrible.
actually, who has a bad V trigger?
I don't know, because you get 2 V triggers now, so it's kind of like,
Yeah, you can pick.
I wouldn't be surprised if like at least one of them is like good enough.
Well, I guess on that topic though, comeback mechanics like V trigger, do you feel like that makes characters samey, or are they developed enough to make things unique?
Say that again?
They can be samey, but as long as the character... Fuck, what was I gonna say?
Take your time, man.
They can be samey, but... Fuck.
Well, I mean, EOL, Quincy, did you guys have anything you were gonna interject on?
Nah.
I personally don't like the whole comeback mechanic just because it makes it way too easy for someone who isn't as good as you to have a chance. And that's probably just the old fighter in me talking, but like if I'm there beating your face in, I don't want to have to sit back and try to figure out, well, this mechanic just decided to kick in, so let me back up, because if I don't, then I'm going to get destroyed regardless on how good or bad my opponent is.
This man just said he doesn't want to lose his turn.
Okay, so it's more to it than, oh, I don't want to lose. To me it feels like if you have been given a comeback mechanic, so let's say so for instance, for Smash Ultimate Smash 4, the rage mechanic, I don't want to beat your face in for 20 solid seconds, 30 solid seconds, only for you to come back and smack me once and then I die. You know what I mean?
Well, that's where
Like,
I'm glad you brought up rage, because I was about to ask you, what mechanic do you feel actually makes things easy? Like, say rage versus oh wait, actually Peter said it in the chat. Well, actually, you know what? Yeah, let's compare rage and X Factor. Do you feel like both of those mechanics are easy comeback mechanics?
Rage is an easy comeback. Rage is an easy comeback mechanic. X Factor is a different thing because you can activate X Factor at any given point in time, whereas Rage is something that's built up
When you're losing?
when you're.
Well, I mean,
when you're
then
losing.
again, so is X Factor, because X Factor has multiple levels to it.
I'm of the opinion that rage is not that big of a deal, like, especially like considering the idea that like rage can also mess up like combos and whatnot, just off of the
Oh, yeah, I
idea
forgot
that
about
like you do damage, so now you be out here doing too much knockback and you don't get the combos that you might have had before. X Factor is just dumb. X Factor is just horrible. Like, rage helps. X Factor is a huge game changer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and especially seeing how you get, especially how Dark Phoenix and the mechanics of getting to Dark Phoenix, and then all of a sudden
level 3 X Factor Dark
Factor.
Phoenix.
it's just like, okay, well, I'm losing hardcore, but I have a backup plan. So like the whole game, you're trying to get rid of their backup plan, and if somehow you don't get rid of their backup plan, oh well, now you have to worry about getting reverse swept.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense then. And that's probably why I'd be more in the school of kind of what Israel's saying, where if you have comeback mechanics that are developed specifically around the character, like say, well, actually, yeah, usually mechanics like V trigger or freaking actually that's the primary one I can think of right now. Comeback mechanics that are a powered up state specific to that character. Those comeback mechanics can at least be unique and interesting. You may still feel like you get robbed in some way, but the execution of that robbery can probably vary greatly. And it's hard for me to tell personally because whenever I get hit by something in V Trigger and Street Fighter, I don't know what the frick is happening. So I just die regardless. Or the team is built. Oh yeah. Well, in fact, like he said, you end up changing your game plan. Uh, actually, in fact, there's kind of Actually, no. Another example of that is freaking Lil Wayne, I guess, kind of, in Granblue, where they have this mechanic that, well, honestly, Iggy has answers to deal with her. You're just not doing it in freaking lag. But Lil Wayne's an example of a character that you play around trying to kill him before he can get to Iggy, for example. So that's just an example of where you just change your game plan, and they can't just rely on getting to Iggy if you can outsmart them with that game plan. Well, Phoenix, you can build ways to just kill her immediately. So I guess you can outsmart someone in that regard too. Does that justify it though? Now we're getting into the topic of what's considered okay and not okay.
That's a different topic, but I mean,
Yeah, my brain's like hopping over to multiple things.
we're still on number 4, or
Yeah. Because another aspect, or actually kind of the aspect of what I wanted to touch on for number 4, was my personal question to you guys is, do you feel like it's possible to balance a game in a way where characters as well as universal mechanics, tools and universal mechanics enable all characters to be viable and functional and quote-unquote not suck? Can all of that be achieved without homogenization? In other words, without the game feeling too samey? Because I know that was a complaint that people have had about Street Fighter in like the middle portion of its lifetime, where some things felt too samey. Do you guys feel like you can balance a game and make every character functional and viable without things feeling too samey?
I hear a lot of people talk about how parry makes everybody in Third Strike viable, even like the super ass character.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Even Sean?
Oh, absolutely. Dude, have you seen any of the Japanese players that play? Like, they'll use any character they basically want and still win.
Yeah. Wait, not really balanced, but you create a skill. Well, actually, before I address the chat, I want you guys to give your thoughts first. EOL, Matt, and Quincy. And then I'll address the chat in a second.
I'm gonna have to go off that tangent with Third Strike. Like, with the parry mechanic, you can theoretically make the game. 1 minute. What was that shit thing? I gotta look at this. Homogenization and balance tools and system mechanics.
Oh, yeah. So basically... Oh, wait, go ahead.
Even if the game is too homogenized, it can still be fun, you know? characters can still.
You're the first person that I've heard that from besides.
Because like in like every fighting game is homogenized in a way. Like what's your main goal? And then you want to get their fucking character to fucking 0 health, right? You know.
Very big simplification, but true.
Yeah, and I don't know how to expand on that. My thoughts are all fucking jumbled right now.
Well, you can take your time in that regard because that's actually, I'm glad that you said that. Because yeah, I mean, depending on how you simplify it, there are in a lot of fighting games, you can like reduce a character's game plan down to the really simple steps of getting a freaking knockdown and running set play. But
yeah.
a character's tools and their aesthetic can add enough variety to that to where, yeah, you may or may not be technically doing the same thing, but the character feels different. In fact, I forgot, it was an example that Nick brought up. I think it was Nick that brought up that Aurier and Wagner, quote unquote, play the same, but they're obviously not the same character.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Characters can have the same game plan, but like play completely differently, basically.
Yeah, and that comes down to how you implement tools.
Yeah.
And I guess actually EOL, you'd probably be the first person I want to segue to on that topic because again, with your experience in tag team fighters, do you feel like do you feel tag team fighters, or at least the games that you have an interest in general, fall into homogenization, or do you feel like they avoid it entirely, regardless of whether or not they're fun?
Well, Skullgirls keeps it pretty diverse. Assists, you know, you kind of get to make anything an assist that's not an aerial move, so that's something. You can make dash an assist. Yeah. It actually even has a use. Its use is like you alpha counter, and then you could press jab because you're canceling your dash into a jab.
What the frick?
So that's pretty interesting. Not very good, but I mean, it exists. There's a lot of there's a lot of different assist choices. Some of them are like clearly better than others, but like everybody got a little something that you can do. Everybody's got at least like 2, 3, 4 viable assists.
So then, is there a game that you've played where you feel like things may or may not feel homogenized, but you still feel like the game is balanced and or fun?
I don't really play very many balanced games. Not that I look for the unbalanced, but like there's just not very many balanced games. You know what I mean? I just got to keep going back to SG for the balance part. Homogenized, I mean, let me see.
Like, is there a game that comes to mind for you, where the game feels samey, but it may or may not approach decent balance, and it may or may not approach decent fun? Like, is there a game that comes to mind for you that, or do you feel like it's still possible, at least?
Maybe some of the Marvel games. Like, those are obviously not... You said not balanced, right?
Yeah, well...
Yeah, those games are absolutely not balanced. And, like, a lot of, like... Especially, like, Marvel 2, just think about how, like, Storm and Sentinel just be up in the sky all freaking day long. I mean, they may do different things in the sky, but they're pretty unapproachable. Like, you can't really approach Storm when she's, like, flying up there, just mashing buttons, building meter.
Yeah.
Especially, like, when she's mashing jump short, and it's just, like, you're gonna jump into that, she's gonna confirm, and then you're gonna eat a lot of damage. Sentinel's kind of hard to get up there in that regard too. And then like for rushdown, like you can't tell me there's a difference between when Storm rushes you down and when Magneto rushes you down. I don't think that's a thing.
Oh, that's a different thing altogether.
Those. I mean, like they're both doing really stupid fast high lows that you really can't react to, and they look almost exactly the same in that regard.
So the mix is the same, but first off, the mix is the same.
A
But
lot
do
of
you
the
feel like
neutral is the same, and a lot of the mix is the same.
But so in that regard, do you feel like they still feel like different characters?
Yeah, because Storm can do it all. Magneto has to rush down. Sentinel, more often than not, will use their buttons to like play aerial footsies and just be in a superior position almost at all times. Cable is all like Cable feels like squiggly almost. That feels kind of backwards to say considering who came first, but
Yeah, but I get what you mean.
Cable just relies on meters so much. It's like, I mean, there are matchups where Cable wins, so therefore you got to put him on point. But like, if you're in a position where like you could just bring Cable in later, my lord have mercy, you literally kill somebody off of like 3 or 4 meters.
True.
And like just like off the guard break into the air hyper viper beams, and like that character's pretty nuts. Otherwise, that character's running away and shooting you and trying to get the hell away, because that character has no offensive capability whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. They're just looking to whiff punish something. They're just looking to punish an assist call.
Freaking foozies. And actually, before I get to
Don't ever call Cable footsies again.
Before I get to Quincy, because I know he probably has a point on that. Do you all on the topic of Marvel 2, then I guess, because that's what you brought up. Do you feel like, for example, buffing some of the mid tiers in that game, would they feel, even if it made the game more balanced, do you feel like they would play too similar to some of the top tiers if they got balanced to the point of being equal, or no?
I don't know if it's possible. Like it's like some of those, a lot of those. Like, what are you gonna do? Put universal 8-way air dashes? Are you gonna give some characters like really like strong Sentinel-esque like flight modes and like normals and damage? Like, how does like that?
Would you do that?
That's not possible. And without it making sense, it's not possible.
So that's where we're getting to character mechanics and whether or not it's actually practical to give certain buffs like that.
Like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like, let's say like Cammy is one of the stronger mid-tier characters. How would you buff that character to make it so that that character is viable in top tier play? I just don't feel like you can without having it make sense. Like, okay, we can start talking about things that don't make sense. Like, all right, well, we got to start by giving her an air dash. You're giving Cammy an air dash? Why? You see what I mean?
I feel like Matt, since he's here, he'd find some weird canonical reason that Cammy should have a freaking air dash.
Just give her a jetpack. You know, it's fan
Bro,
fiction.
what?
It's fan fiction. You know?
Oh my god.
Please keep your jetpacks out of my face fighters.
Cammy with a jetpack. I really
That's
hope
the only way
it.
she'll get a fucking air dash, bro. Unless she could fucking like air dash, fucking cancel out of her fucking dive kick, instant air dive kick, and then fucking dash forward, dash back, you know, up, down, whatever.
Dang.
That'd make it more difficult.
I feel like there might be a Because Science episode on this or something.
Yeah.
Oh my god. But
Imagine that though.
I don't know. I get what you mean though, EOL. And that's where it comes down to design of characters. Where if you already make characters so like different, or you already establish what they are and how they function, you probably can't really get too outlandish with what you give them, or else it just makes zero sense at all. And then you don't even reach homogenization anyway, because you can't even give them something similar to what someone else has for canonical reasons. So I guess that's a lot easier to avoid when you have established IP characters already. But what do you think, Quincy?
Which one are we on?
Number 4. Basically, do you feel that a game can be balanced whether it be character design or universal mechanics and implementation, do you feel you can make a game balanced without things feeling too samey?
You can. It just depends on what you're trying to balance. Like if it's strictly just their moves in particular, then that's more feasible than saying, oh, well, we're just gonna add another move to say character. Oh shoot. Like you were like EOL was saying, like, are you gonna give Cammy an air dash? You know, is everybody gonna have the 8-way triangle jump? You know, stuff like that. Like, I feel like instead of going out and giving everybody that the same tools, if they just did something with the moves that they currently have and kind of just like buff them, then it'd be a lot better. Especially if you're trying to like balance the mid tiers to make them on par with the top tiers.
And that could possibly be achieved without characters feeling like they play the same, quote unquote.
Yeah, because you don't want the character to play the same as every other character. You want each character to have like their own moveset, because if you're all playing the same character, then you might as well just dumb it down to whoever has the best version of the overall package and just use that character. It would kind of counteract what you're initially trying to do. Whereas if you're just buffing the mid-tier's current moveset, then I feel like you'd have more diverse roster that's viable.
Okay. And in fact, it's funny you mention that, because the two examples that were brought up in chat by Tim and Israel were Them's Fighting Herds and Dragon Ball. Where Dragon Ball definitely wasn't in as great of a spot balance-wise a season ago, because everyone was just playing freaking GT Goku. But over time, Dragon Ball is a game that, while some people have said feels homogenized, characters still have their distinct appeal, and slowly but surely more characters are being seen / explored. Because the tier lists have like shifted all over the place. Well, the top tiers haven't really shifted that much, but lower tiers have been like looked at a bit more. Actually, I guess while I touch on that, Israel, do you feel like Dragon Ball is too homogenized, or do you feel like characters play adequately enough in their own right to justify being picked over other characters? Because with Them's Fighting Herds, on the other hand, Them's Fighting Herds is an example of a game that it has a small roster to work with already, with characters that, at least to me personally, feel pretty uniquely established. Like, yeah, like EOL, no one in Them's Fighting Herds plays the same. Like,
Not even close.
in terms of game plan at all, right? Yeah. Yeah, Pomp. Yeah. And I don't know if having a smaller roster is an innate thing that makes that easier. Because, I mean, a game with a smaller roster is inherently easier to balance, I guess, naturally. Because you have less of a matchup spread to look at and worry about. But character design-wise, once you design the character, they're set. Unless I can't think of a game where a character was made and they completely overhauled their character design. Can y'all think of a fighting game where when a game first came out, a character is completely different to where they are now?
Compared to their previous iteration?
Well,
Yes.
not across games. I mean, well, yeah, not across games, because then that's just an entire version of itself. But can you think of a game that was patched over time and a character was completely reworked over numerous patches to be completely different? Can you think of a game where that's ever happened before?
Like they play completely different. Their moveset's completely different.
Yeah, like a character getting reworked over the course of a game's lifespan.
The only one I can think of off the top of my head would be BlazBlue Lychee, BlazBlue 1 Lychee to BlazBlue 2 Lychee.
Yeah, and that's across games, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Where the initial combos that Lychee had from the first game don't work at all in the second game. That's not necessarily bad because she had a whole new combo to work with. It's basically having to learn a whole new character.
Yeah, so unless you go from one version of the game to the next, usually a character's design is set. Unless we go into other genres like FPSs, because the only example that can come to mind for me personally is like Overwatch, where over that game's lifespan, some characters actually have gotten complete overhauls if you look at how they were at the very beginning of the game.
Oh wait a minute, I thought it was like one like Seth from SF4 to Seth to SF5. He plays pretty different.
Yeah, that's another example of across games.
You're just talking about in the same game?
Yeah. Well, because
not in the same game then.
Yeah,
If
well,
we're talking
because
about like anything outside of fighters, then Granblue has a lot of that. Granblue Fantasy, like the mobile game. But if we're gonna stick to fighting games, I would say Misfortune, because Misfortune is a character that went from you have to play headless, the head on is like really bad, to the point where like there was a point where like you only played the character head on and headless was really bad, and now they've like made a somewhat of a balance where like it's better to play neutral head on, but then like to take off the head when you get a hit and keep the pressure on, and also like matchup dependent and whatnot. But it's definitely a lot more balanced than it used to be.
So they made it a lot more intuitive.
It jumped around a lot though.
See, so I mean, I guess aside from that, it sounds like we have to go outside of fighting game genres to where a character's set design can change drastically over the course of the game. But I mean, so far it sounds like it's at least believed that things can be tweaked, and you can make a game balance without things being too samey. But I mean, are there any examples of games for you guys that may feel balanced, but they do feel too samey?
Early SF. Well, I don't know about balance, but early SF5 was a pretty big example of this, where it's just like a couple buttons, a ton of blocks done, and then like you get to walk forward a little bit, and then like the mix up between a throw and just another plus button, and that was like a thing that was like really prominent with like
that was definitely early Street Fighter.
I don't know how Street Fighter's looking this.
Street Fighter now seems at least way less samey than it used to be, at least for me personally, from playing with like Matt and them and like looking at what happens at higher level. I mean, obviously you have general stuff like super unsafe button to V trigger, and then you start whatever you're gonna start.
That feels almost universal, yeah.
Yeah, but like in terms of characters actually playing the same, I don't really know if that's applies to Street Fighter V anymore. Things like adding the multiple V skills and multiple V triggers kind of shook the game to its core.
Yeah, it shook things up a lot.
And I guess, well, I'm trying to think with Dragon Ball, there are assists. There's a lot of assists that are homogenized and serve the same purpose, but the characters themselves play differently. At least to my knowledge, especially now in the most recent season, because more characters got more established types of assists. Like now, Krillin has a freaking beam assist, Yamcha has a beam assist, but all of those characters play completely different from each other. And actually, that could be a prime example of where I would say that homogenized things can lead to balance, but not necessarily lead to things being less interesting. Because now some characters that were considered like Garbo there's actually a reason to play them now, like freaking Krillin.
Because he has a beam assist and not a bunch of rocks.
And like you don't have to use the freaking rocks. Now you can actually have a standard assist that other characters in the cast were using. Freaking Nappa. Actually, Nappa is an example of a character. He's so niche and weird, but he has stuff. Actually, I guess in a way, Nappa might kind of be a case of kind of like Squiggly, where they're serving a very niche purpose. They got stuff, but it's still a very niche purpose. Characters like Nappa, Vegeta Blue, Beerus, even though I don't even know if Beerus has an actual positive niche. Characters like that, they break homogenization entirely because they're so weird. But this is where I wish Donovan, well, maybe if Donovan pokes back in later, we can touch back on this topic again, because I'm sure he'd have a lot to say on where sometimes trying to balance things can make things too samey. Actually, I guess to briefly bring it up with you guys, one thing that I've brought up with him before is giving characters enough tools to where either they have answers to situations or they have what they need to prevent situations of disadvantage. That was one of the examples of where Donovan said it can run the risk of being too samey. What do you guys think about that? Do you feel like there's a certain point where giving characters tools can make things too samey?
Like I said, it just depends on who's getting those tools and what the tools are.
Well, say for example, actually, I'll give you guys a thought experiment. Say you have this 10 character game, and every character has a DP. It may be varying angles, it may be varying amounts of recovery, whatever, but every character has some kind of invincible reversal. Do you feel like that's too homogenized?
It depends on the kind of character with the DP. Do you want to give a zoner character a DP, like in Grand case? Not me personally, but some people want it, like, fairy players. So.
Oh lordy.
And another thing, do you want to give command grab characters DPs? I know some people do.
Oh man.
Yeah. Really depends on the type of character that gets that certain special move, I guess.
Well, in fact, that's why I'm glad Ewell's here. Ewell, would you give Ladiva a DP?
She could just spin around like Hagar and do a double lariat like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Not gonna make me come back to the game, but that'd be cool.
Dang, give Ladiva a lariat. Would that be busted?
And she has meter reversals. That's good enough.
Yeah, and that's where you get into universal. That's why I was saying where it doesn't even have to always be giving a character every tool. Sometimes system mechanics are all you need to enable characters. Like in Uni, not everyone has a DP. In fact, not everyone even has fast buttons to mash out with, but everyone can guard thrusts at some point. If you have the meter, or if you earn the resource by blocking correctly. That's a prime example of a universal mechanic that I would say works around homogenization, because every character can have their own thing and whatever, but it's a defensive mechanic that makes sure some character without a DP doesn't have to suffer, at least if they have the skill. Is that not like a good thing? Or what? Actually, in fact, on the topic of guard thrust, I guess an example of doing that badly is Street Fighter V's V reversal.
It's so fucking bad.
Because clearly, some V reversals are better than others. I still honestly would say like they should just universalize V reversal. Let's give everyone the same alpha counter.
As an example, Cammy's V reversal is like -8 now. So if I V reversal, I can just get fucking punished immediately with raw super or crouching medium kick, or just fucking like literally dash up throw or dash up meaty button. So there's no point in using it anymore.
Dang. See, having a useless defensive mechanic does not feel good, at least for me personally.
Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah, in fact, I'm surprised Israel's not here to like chime in on that.
He's probably sweeping somebody in SF5 right now.
But in the event Donovan or Nick or anyone hops back in later on, we could go ahead and go to the last topic and then ramble on or revisit anything else that we feel like. We've talked a lot about balance. We've given example of the foundation of what we consider, of what makes balance. So one thing that comes up talking a lot about balance is tier lists. Just to put it out straight, do you guys feel that in our current day and like the current perspective of the FGC, do you feel like tier lists are utilized properly, or do you feel like they serve the purpose that they're intended to when it comes to like the general FGC?
Personally, I only use them to like gauge what people feel like characters are like, flavor of the month or like strong at the moment. Like every game that comes out, I want to try the character myself, then make my own opinion based on my own, experiences. But a tier list isn't a be-all, end-all. It's just like a guide, basically. Like it'll guide me to easily pick a character that has strengths that I, like. That's what I use them for.
Okay, so basically judging if a character
plays the way I like it.
Yeah, plays how you want and is worth your time.
Yeah. Like I'm not gonna pick like a C tier or D tier or F tier character that doesn't have a DP ever. And that's just my principle.
See that brings up a different kind of tool that I want to bring up after this. But see, it's interesting that Tim said that in the chat, where tier lists are inherently very subjective either way, because no matter who makes a tier list, no matter how many people agree on a tier list, someone will always be like, this character is too high or too low. And what really irks me is when actually I'll get to that later, but sometimes there are views of tier lists as, like you guys said, a be all end all. But if people use them properly, I guess, kind of to take it like a grain of take it with a grain of salt. I guess, like you said, it can be a guide.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But EOL, Quincy, what do you guys think?
Yeah, the tier list can be used as a guide.
Oh.
The way I see it is the higher up the tier list, the more options, based on the game's mechanics, the more options that character has over, say, a bottom tier. Then that's not to say like a bottom tier character can't win, because if you have
depending on the game, I suppose.
Depending on the game and the player, but those that are sitting up in the high and top tier have a much better opportunity or a better chance to win because of their tools are just that much better. So I feel like Ewell was saying, or who was it? Was it Ewell or Matt that was saying that that was a good guide? One of the two.
Oh yeah, that was Matt. Well, I guess and Peter too.
Yeah, it's a good guide to let you know, hey, well, especially if you're coming into the game, you look at the tier list, you'd be like, okay, well, this character has, at least for me, this character has more options than, say, this character. Or if you look deep into it, then you find out that the bottom tier character, the reasons why they're sitting at bottom tier or low tier, as opposed to, say, a top tier or a high tier. And then a mid tier is just kind of floaty in and of itself.
That's what I was going to touch on in a second, in fact. But EOL, what do you think? In fact, sorry, I probably should have said one then the other. But go ahead, EOL.
Tier lists. I mean, they work as far as I know. You just gotta take them with a grain of salt, because a lot of the times all they are is someone's opinion or like a collective of people's opinions, and generally you take that with a grain of salt. Regardless, for example, like Sonic Fox, like I would never trust that guy's opinions and tiers like ever.
Wait, why not?
Like they think that certain characters in SG need to be buffed when they're completely fine, and if they were to be buffed, they would just be absurd. And like I promise you, like they say, yo, Fukua needs buffs, and about
Fukua
like 90% of the community is like, Sonic, shut up. So like I wouldn't trust that guy's tier list, but I mean he can go ahead and make one. It's like, oh cool, Sonic's tier list, I'm gonna ignore this now. Or it's like someone else puts out a tier list, and it's like, oh cool, somebody's tier list, I'm gonna ignore this. I don't have to take it tier list seriously. So once I do that, it's like tier lists are fine. And especially like when you see a trend in the tier list, then you can start like considering like potential, like this might have some merit. Like if somebody just like, if I see like 25 Dragon Ball Fighters tier lists and all of them have, and I have no idea what's going on with the game, and all of them have like Ultra Instinct Goku as the best character in the game, then I mean maybe Goku is like a really strong character.
It's funny you say that because everyone is agreeing that Ultra Instinct Goku is top tier.
That's why I brought him up, because like I've been hearing, like in passing at least, I've been hearing a lot about him. So
yeah,
like I can't. But yeah, I mean, you just don't take them seriously, and then you take them as they are, just opinions, and they're just really interesting, like in that regard.
I guess that's where, like you guys said, if you start to see multiple notable opinions and it starts to be a collective agreement, or there's like some kind of trend, I guess you can take that into like generalized knowledge. For the most part, I guess. Well, because one thing that I don't like about tier lists, actually, and it happens less and less now, especially for the top players that actually make content, because when those top players make content and make a tier list, it's elaborate videos and giving the reasoning and whatnot. But there have been a lot of times where people make a tier list, and I hate when they don't have very established reasoning and logic to their tier list. Which is why I tend to not like tier lists where the letters are really arbitrary, and then they do like a bunch of plus minus stuff, and you have like 7 different tiers with like no reasoning whatsoever. That's where I feel like tier lists aren't really used very correctly, because for me personally, the whole point of making a tier list is a thought experiment. Because since it's so subjective, usually people bring up a tier list to start discussion and get people brainstorming about, well, what are these characters' strengths? What are their weaknesses? What matchups do they struggle with, etc. So for me personally, oh my god, the D plus and C minus.
Yeah, at that point it gets like kind of useless. There should be like no like minuses. It should just be A, B, C, D, E, F.
Well,
S.
for me, plus and minus should only start happening when your game is really that balanced to where you really can't tell where a character belongs. In fact, Dragon Ball is a game where some players, I do see their tier lists are like S, A minus, A, B. Because apparently majority of characters in Dragon Ball are considered that viable or that have that much redeeming qualities. But this is where I like when people make tier lists and actually define what their letters mean or what each row means. Like what I typically see in Samsho tier lists. Every tier has some kind of reasoning, where the lower tier is they're viable, you just gotta work for it. Like the 2 middle tiers, or even just 1 middle tier, is like these characters are good, but they have pretty established weaknesses, and then top tier is obviously great characters with no real weaknesses. Like, stuff like that. When a tier list, that's why, like, when I make all of my freaking silly shenanigans tiers, I have all that text on my tiers, because I like when there's actual reasoning for tiers. And it also, I feel for me personally, it helps with the discussion a bit better, because even uni players have done this sometimes, where they put out a tier list, there's letters, there's characters, and then they don't say anything at all. And then people are just in the comments, like hundreds of comments being like, why'd you put this character here? Why'd you put this character here? And there's no discussion whatsoever. That, I feel, is very not productive at all. So that would be a main case where I would say tier lists aren't really done intuitively. But in the cases where top players make their hour-long videos of making a tier list, talking about the character strengths, why they're there, and then like their discussion built up from that, and like you guys said, you take it with a grain of salt, that I feel is like the perfect tier list discussion. And I really hope I hope that will be a thing that's done more consistently in general across all games. Although I guess for some games, even without like as much discussion, like you guys said, there are some things where there's like a trend. Like for example with Uni, we have like no major tournament results or anything to discuss off of, but there are some noticeable trends across both Japanese and American tier lists that I guess you can take into collective knowledge, but still also take with a grain of salt. But I guess that's good if people are used to taking things as a guide. We'll probably all run across players at some point in our lives that take a tier list as law and just make excuses for their character, I suppose. I don't know.
That's inevitable.
I'm trying to think of a game. Well, actually, it's probably older games that they're around so long and our knowledge is so established that the tier list does basically become law. Are there older games that you guys would say probably have tier lists that are pretty established and indisputable at this point?
Yeah.
Melee?
Any game that's like at least like 20 years old, basically.
Melee.
They're pretty set.
Melee.
I'd say the majority of the older games pretty much have set tier lists. It's been so long. There's like not really. You're not finding anything super game breaking at this point.
Yeah.
Like you know what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess actually Marvel 2 is probably another prime example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't want. I didn't want to start like sounding like a broken record. But yeah.
Nah, I get it.
It works. It works.
Yeah, at this point, most older games probably not finding anything new. I mean, for Melee, I guess there was like a middle point where people were finding out stuff, but Melee seems pretty set, honestly. I don't know if things are changing anytime soon.
It's like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. The top 3 have been set forever, for 20 years. And they never change. They're not going to change.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially if a game literally doesn't get patched at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
That right there, I feel like is the best part about a fighting game is the fact that there's no patches to try to mess with the game, and therefore you have, I don't want to say more time, but like more opportunities to find out what the character can do, as far as what tools they have. Like,
oh, well, that's where you get into comparing genres actually, and then preference of what you feel is okay in terms of discovery in a game, because other genres of competitive games, they gotta deal with patches like on the weekly, if not longer than that.
Like MOBAs, we're not trying to be League players getting a new patch every other week or every 2 weeks or wherever the fuck it is.
Yeah, and well, that's where it comes down to preference, because I'm sure some players do like things constantly being fresh, constantly having to test things, discover things.
Imagine if a fighting game got patched weekly.
That sounds like that'd be hard as frick, just on a developer's perspective.
It'd be so annoying. Like, what if you were away, for like 4 or 5 days, and you come back and your character's completely decimated. They changed all your frame data. They changed all your fucking properties. They changed your fucking health. They changed everything.
Well, that'd just be bad balancing.
it would be impossible to learn a character.
Yeah. There'd be no point in playing the game, for me, personally.
Oh, well, I mean, then again, wouldn't you just wait? Well, wouldn't you take solace in knowing that another patch is probably coming in a week and your character will probably be fine again?
Yeah, but then you have to worry about the next week.
True. Would I play a fighting game that updated as much as, like, say, Overwatch? Actually, you know what? Yeah, so say, like, let's say Guilty Gear Strive starts having quarterly updates. Would y'all like that or no? So, like, every 3 months.
3 months is a pretty long amount of time, but what if you're in the situation you picked up the game in the 3rd month and then they patch it literally the week you're learning the game? You have to like rethink your whole.
That's gonna happen regardless, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, even if you're just coming in, you're not gonna be set in stone on a character unless you specifically like what they got.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So basically, I'm trying to have like maybe a huge balance patch, maybe at most twice a year, if not once a year, and then just like bug fixes the rest of the time.
That seems like a solid choice.
Yeah, that's a time range that I would like. Because I like when things have time to develop, obviously, like everyone does. But there's like actually, I guess it's just a balance. There probably is a good middle ground of keeping things fresh and addressing issues while leaving adequate time for things to be discovered and problems to be solved by players rather than the developers. Because at least for me as a developer, obviously you want to fix things that are game breaking or things that just people just don't like. But at the same time, for example, in the case of underexplored characters, you do want to give time, at least personally, me personally, you do want to give time for people to explore with untapped things. Which is why, like with Sam's show, I like the direction in terms of bounce that they've gone. I'm just worried they're going to end up changing / needlessly buffing Wu Rui Shang before I get a chance to really test her potential, you know? And actually, fighting games in general might be in that kind of situation, or at least the newer ones, like Uniclear. We don't even have anything to see, like, of what may or may not need to be addressed in the game. But then they might come out with a giant balance patch again in, like, for whatever reason, freaking December, and we won't even know the logic behind it, you know?
That's the worst.
So
Fucking shadow nerfs.
Shadow
nerf.
Nerf.
Shadow
Oh,
buffs.
yeah, this
You
is
know?
why if you were to
Unlisted
have
changes.
yeah, if you were to have more consistent patches, developers should always be as transparent as possible. Like if they somehow don't like realize a shadow nerf, then fine, whatever. I'll give you the benefit of a doubt, but don't leave stuff out of the patch notes.
Too bad it happens every single time. You have to rely on fucking Twitter threads of people literally testing the move frame by frame.
We're in 2020, going on 2021. We're probably past an age where developers have to fully rely, or communities, I should say, have to fully rely on players to discover and put things out there. Developers can probably be much more transparent about that stuff.
They should, but that doesn't mean they will. You know? They should, though.
See, everything needs to be more like KI's example.
I guess, yeah.
I was gonna say like Skullgirl's example in terms of like the training mode.
Yeah, well, that's another aspect of like in-game tools. Like every fighting game should have Skullgirl's training mode. Like honestly, we could probably do. In fact, actually, Ewell already did a big piece on that in one of our past podcast episodes. Every fighting game should have Skullgirl's training mode, and that's a transparency of in-game stuff. But like even outside the game, if a developer can see everything that's implemented, and if they do everything with intent, they should be able to be transparent with everything, buffs, nerfs, whatever. Actually, yeah.
Should be. But
Yeah, like if there's a shadow nerf, that would mean that it probably was unintentional, which means you're not
Or
paying
they-
attention.
Or it was intentional, they just want people to figure it out themselves. You know, they want to be mystical about it.
Well, I mean, I know people still do like figuring stuff out for themselves. In fact, sometimes I even fall into that trap. But like you guys have heard Donovan in past episodes, it's 2020. We're in the age of Twitter. People probably have found something out for you. Just look it up, and then there you go. But we shouldn't even be at that point either. Oh, I mean, actually, when it comes to stuff like combos and all that, obviously, you still want players to figure out that stuff. But like system mechanics and like changes to back end stuff, that shouldn't be up to players to figure out.
Oh, you're talking about stealth patches, or like when people pull a Smash, when like developers pull a Smash 4 and just be like, the game got changed, figure it out yourself.
Yeah, like stuff.
Stealth changes are the worst. You're like dumb. Why are you making a patch? Why are you making patches and a patch notes and then like not talk about these other changes that you did? Like, what the hell are you talking? Like, what's wrong with you?
We are
stealth changes are stupid. Just put it on the change notes. What do you think? What?
Yeah, just freaking. We are way
Why
past
are we
the days
discussing
of
the existence of stealth changes. Like, you're dumb. Like, you are actually dumb if you just be out here doing this to the people. Like, you cannot give me a single good reason as to why you changed the frame data on these 3 normals, and only 2 of them are listed, and you decided not to list the last one. You can't tell me a good reason. You are just dumb. That's right. I'm going there. I am personally insulting people who be doing this type of stuff.
No, I'm actually glad you brought up Smash, because in the earlier days of Smash patches, that's literally what was happening. There were no details whatsoever,
ridiculous.
And the players just had to go dummy ham and like make their own freaking sites and stuff for frame data. It's freaking silly.
It would take weeks for them to decipher a whole, like the whole thing, like the whole, because they would have to literally grab the old data of the game, compare it to the new data of the game, and see where the changes are and what it means. And it's like the stupidest thing on earth. Like, what are you talking about?
That wastes way too much time.
It took weeks to get a full patch notes.
Like me personally, like I've completely missed the whole era of Smash 4. So like patch balances in Smash is still relatively new to me.
I mean, even now, Smash patches are kind of vague. They'll say, like, well, actually, no. It's basically gotten to the same level now of, like, the standard anime fighters, where they'll be kind of vague about things and say, like, made this move faster, made this move safer. And where we as players, we figure out, oh, this recovery was reduced by this, or this startup was increased by whatever. So there's been improvement, just still could be more transparent.
And that's why I kind of I like the idea of for Smash in general, the group called Beefy Smash Dudes, where they actually go and dive into what were changed, but I think they get like a little help, because like they get the information from the oncoming patch notes and then they can just decipher it from there. Whereas opposed to, I guess, what you guys were saying about Smash 4, where there's like, hey, here's your patch notes, or not even patch notes, we updated the game, have fun trying to figure that shit out. And for me, being, I don't want to keep saying old school, but for me, like, a patch update meant that it was a new game, like a brand new game, like going from Street Fighter second, second Impact to Third Strike. Like, that was your patch right there.
Dang, the freaking days of like whole games being the patch.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think we're probably past that now.
We've been past it. That's why I feel like Street Fighter V and Tekken 7 haven't introduced a brand new game yet.
Sorry, I was typing that out. See, look how far we've come with fighting games. Uh,
And to go from brand new game to brand new game to we'll just stick with this game and continuously updating that. And it's good, but at the same time, I feel like if you put too much emphasis on the patch notes and patching, then it makes it feel like the players will eventually start getting lazy.
well, lazy in terms of not figuring out stuff for themselves, or what?
Lazy in terms of like not dealing with the issue right then and there. So like say,
Oh.
so let's take an example. Let's take a Smash 4 Bayo, where from what I heard, like as soon as they made like 1 or 2 updates, they completely stopped giving updates right after Bayo was introduced. Now say if they kept going with the updates and they decide to change Bayo, then you'd have like other issues that other characters would have to bring up, because you'd either have to A, nerf Bayo, or B, buff up a whole bunch of characters, in which case you wouldn't learn from having to deal with said character, as opposed to saying, okay, well, I'm playing Melee, I know for a fact that let's say Captain Falcon loses to Fox. Well, if you play Captain Falcon, you're just going to have to deal with it. Or say if you're going
This
using...
man's telling you to just hold that.
If you're using Marth against Falco, okay, well, you're going to have to find ways around Marth's bullshit. And that's what I like about fighting game players of old, is that they were forced and had to figure ways around it, which makes the tier list more significant, as opposed to I guess you would call the patch culture, I guess, where
Depending on the game,
yeah, where X, Y, and Z character is good because of this move. Well, we want those moves nerfed, but we also want our characters buffed. Okay, well, now that that's changed, okay, well, what else do you want to nerf to try to fit your agenda to make your character as good as possible?
Well, that's why I said earlier, in fact, that I'd say it really comes down to a balance, where it's on the developer to address issues and like fix game-breaking things, while at the same time leaving adequate time and resources for players to discover and problem solve. And honestly, the only game that I can think of that really fell into, I guess, quote-unquote patch culture is Smash. So I'm trying to think of...
Probably NRS.
Huh?
Probably NRS also.
NRS. Oh, actually, oh yeah, NRS too. Because didn't some characters get, like, gutted in MK?
Yeah.
Apparently.
So they...
Yeah.
But, like, I be hearing a lot about, like, well, I mean, they slowed down a little bit, but I know before, like, there was a ton of patches all the time, and it was constantly getting changed, and some of the people were starting to get kind of fed up on the idea that, like, oh, my character's good for, like, 2 weeks. Now they got changed.
That seems like the NRS cycle. Like, the game comes out, there's, like, a couple top, and then they get patched in, like, a month, and then they're just garbage for the whole life cycle. And then the new game comes out 2 years later.
I guess it is an NRS cycle, because Peter, I mentioned Injustice 2 also.
Yeah.
Jeez. And actually it's funny because for all other games, it's usually the reverse, where sometimes people are scared to be good with their character in the fear that they may get nerfed. Or they complain about the character enough and they get buffed. Well, that's where you can go into specifics of whether or not the buffs are justified or whatever. Um, I guess an example would be Granblue, where problems were definitely addressed. The question, I guess, just comes down to, do you feel like they were addressed correctly or not? Because I don't know if Granblue would technically count as patch culture. Where did things that were complained about for the most part all get addressed, or was it nerfs, buffs, or both in Granblue?
Say that again?
Like when it comes to, do you feel like Granblue goes into the category of, I guess, patch culture, where was it things primarily complained about that got addressed, or was it things overall in the game that needed to be addressed got addressed?
You're talking about versus, right?
Yeah, Granblue versus. Sorry.
Well, let me see. I know some of the characters being like absurdly plus was like kind of absurd, so like that probably needed to go. Like, imagine like being Catalina and having all that range and having all that plus frames. Like that doesn't sound right. That was absurd.
Yeah, I'm still kind of mad I didn't buy the game until the patch happened.
Oh my
I bought the
god.
game and the patch came and like, oh, Catalina's not as plus now. She's not plus 8 anymore after one block string.
Like some of that had to go. Like Gran being that plus was kind of wild too. Fairy in her current iteration was kind of nuts. Although I think Fairy's still kind of, actually, I think all the top tier are still top tier. They're just not as absurd anymore, which kind of goes to show you how good they were. Like
Things got normalized and they're still established top tier. I think people.
Yeah, last I checked the tier list, they didn't really change.
Well, I mean, people were trying to meme that Lancelot got gutted, but he still does the same stuff.
It feels like what they did with Granblue was just something that needed to happen.
So that was an example of addressing things that needed to be addressed. And well, when it came to the buffs, I wonder if characters like Zeta getting buffed were from outcries or just from them noticing the character's flaws. Zeta shot up. Like, she got a freaking glow up in terms of the buffs.
A lot of the times they'll look at like results, and not just tournament results, but also like results that they'll get from their data and when people play online and whatnot.
Who's commonly used
and
in
it'll be a
all
pretty good way
that.
to like indicate like, oh, this character is struggling because like nobody's just winning with her. She has a really low win rate compared to the rest of these other characters, and then they might look into why that is. They might see like certain spots where they're struggling, and they're like, okay, that's not great. We should probably change that, and then they'll do so. So that's what a lot of games take like data from like their online games, like just
from net play, ranked.
Yeah, from matchmaking and whatnot, and go from there. And they'll obviously look at like feedback, but I don't know how seriously they take that. They probably shouldn't take that seriously, but I'm sure they read the comments.
Yeah, well, because that's where you can, like Quincy said, that's where you can fall into the trap of pandering, I guess would be a word for it. But I guess that's where it might actually be hard for developers to differentiate between, does this need to be problem solved by the players, or is this something that we really need to nip in the bud and fix? I guess it just comes down to balance of your game.
See, I feel like the developers would actually need to like look into the characters' mechanics, the characters' movesets for themselves. Like when they get the list of complaints of what the players think needs to be changed, I would like for the developers to actually look into it and be like, okay, well, this definitely needs to be changed because it's absolute bullshit. or no, this doesn't need to be changed because you can find other ways around it, or it's not doing as much damage as a lot of people think that it does.
Well, it's probably where it's really helpful when some developers are competitively active in their own game, like in Unity, because then they get even more of an insight and not just listening to XYZ scrubs or XYZ pros. You can take all that into account, but then also have a personal experience with that perspective as well. I would imagine that probably helps out a lot when it comes to developers. At least I would think it would. Do any of the developers of Them's Fighting Herds enter tourneys?
I have no idea. I only know one of them, and I don't know if they enter tournaments or not.
Then again, at the same time, it probably won't look good if you're playing your game and you get freaking exposed.
You mean like Clockwork at Evo last year? Clockwork?
I mean, did Harada even make it out of pools in second?
No.
Actually, did he? He didn't?
But the problem with what happened with Clockwork at his exhibition is that he cosplayed as his characters.
Yeah,
that
it was
he
worked
designed,
up as a very hype thing, and then
he got washed. He got
actually washed.
He got perfected, and he got hit with his own infinite. So
Because developers are too busy making a game to get good at a game.
Yeah.
yeah, but he was competing at the same time he was developing the game, and he was doing well. But then he just got washed by this kid from like Michigan or something.
Are we talking about Power Rangers?
Yeah, Power Rangers.
Yeah, Battle for the Grid. Oh, actually, ARMS is another good example. Yeah, Peter's right. We need to bring up the ARMS community again.
I don't ever want to bring up anything about ARMS.
The only thing I know about ARMS is that character everyone wants in Smash, the big butt character. What's her name?
Twintel?
Twintel.
Yeah, that's all I know about.
Nope, you get Min, Chief. Actually, I still haven't watched all of the freaking Min analysis and breakdowns. I haven't really been watching anything Smash related lately, honestly. I need to watch that Min breakdown, because she seems like she'd be fun. She's mad slow.
Well, she's definitely got the range to cover for her slowness.
Yeah, that's why she seems like she'd be a perfect character for me. But I do like my movement.
Which movement?
Zoner characters with mobility give me life, man.
But you just said she's slow.
Huh? Well, that's why I'm saying, like, if she's lacking movement, that might be a ding, like a negative ding for me. I mean, she has that up B though to get out of situations at least. I'll play more Smash eventually. I still don't even have a Switch. But this may be a good point to call it for now, because I don't know when Nick or Donovan are going to hop back in, but I think for the most part all the talking points were addressed. We've addressed things that have been said in the chat. I mean, we could go more into the specifics of balance in terms of what's okay in a fighting game, in terms of like busted things and not busted things, but actually I might want to make that a separate podcast episode, because I want to come up with questions diving deeper into specifics of that. Sorry, are you guys fine with me cutting it off here? And we kind of revisit this topic again in the future?
Yeah.
That's fine.
By all means.
Yeah, because now I have ideas of what I would ask.
This is like the first podcast that isn't like 6 hours or some shit.
Right?
They're usually like 3 to 5 hour
man,
range.
they're always minimum like at least 4 hours or something.
Nah,
He's not wrong.
maybe
This
the
is like
Granblue
7
ones.
hours.
They should be between 2 to 3 hours, aiming closer to 2.
Yeah.
But that's
Hey,
fine.
I timestamp everything. And y'all
Was
can
I
use
gonna
this as
say?
some like ASMR or something.
ASMR. Why
I didn't get here.
Why
until,
on earth
like,
would I use your voice for ASMR?
You know
Well,
what's
that's
funny?
freaking rude.
You know what's funny? Like, I didn't even freaking get a talking point in until like an hour in, and it's been like 2.5, 3 hours since then. So that's how long
Yeah.
this podcast goes.
I don't know. You can just like kill the stream here, and then like if you want to like start streaming something else. I don't know. Like I don't know, fighting herds. Like play me.
Dang. It's calling you out, Ron.
Yeah, man.
Well, it's 10 o'clock. I don't know what I was even gonna work on. Well, see, thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. We can end it here either way. If I go live again, we'll probably be playing something, or I need to figure out what I'm gonna work on. But we can leave this at that for now. I do appreciate any of y'all that tuned in to this. Like I said, this is a topic that, for me personally, I find very important, since I will make a game eventually, and I will want to revisit this probably in like a couple weeks. There's no podcast next week, so probably maybe the week after that. But thank you guys for being a part of this chat. And as I figured, everyone wants busted stuff in games, but at least people want balance in their games along the busted stuff. So that's reassuring, at least.
To a point, we're not trying to get like Mugen busted.
Oh
Yeah, that's a good point.
man, I should do a stream looking into the Mugen engine. Anywho, I'm gonna leave this here. So thank you all for watching. Be sure to check out anything else that's on the channel. Thank you all of you for subbing and all that stuff. I'll catch y'all next time.